A small Yuki wanders lost in snow when a vampire finds and attacks her. He is about to turn her into barbecue sauce when Kaname jumps between them and takes him down. He calls the other vampire a disgrace and then asks her if she is alright as he helps her get up. In the present, Yuki studies in the Cross Academy, which is a private institution with separate day and nighttime classes. Yuki is the daughter of the headmaster as well as the part of the disciplinary committee. She parks herself in front of the school gates to stop the hordes of girls from jumping on the night school boys. The girls don't pay much attention to her and soon the school gate opens through which the nighttime handsome students pour in. The girls miraculously line themselves on both sides to greet them and they greet the idol Ado first followed by Kane. The girls surround some of the guys and push down Yuki who was in their way. Kaname offers her his hand and she thinks about how her earliest memory is the one in which Kaname helped her out as a kid but she doesn't remember anything before that. He tells her to relax and she reminds him that he is technically her savior. He becomes close to her but just then Yuki's disciplinary committee mate named Zero steps between them and tells Kaname to go on his way. Some girls approach Kaname and give him gifts while Zero yells at all the girls to go away. Yuki kicks his back and scolds him for not coming on time. He asks her to tone down her hormones since it's obvious she likes Kaname. The night class students walk away and he reminds her that she shouldn't forget that they are different from normal people. A girl called Siren appears and walks inside the school with Kaname as the rose in his hand withers away. Some time ago the night class developed a blood tablet which was accepted throughout the world as it can be used by the vampires as a replacement for human blood. The night class members discuss how they find Zero very irritating and one of them named Shiki comments that Yuki seems really delicious. Another vampire named Ruka points out to Kaname that he seems really interested in Yuki and he agrees in return. Suddenly the clouds cover the moon and the night of the vampires officially begins. The headmaster reminds Zero and Yuki that the night class members are all vampires and it's their duty to keep their identities a secret. Zero whines about his duty but Yuki likes her job and wants to protect their identity. The headmaster preaches to them that he wants vampires to live with humans due to which the school has two separate classes and it's his dream for them to live in peace. Zero storms out and the headmaster points out that there definitely are bloodthirsty vampires as well who prey on humans. Yuki defends Kaname that he is different and won't ever hurt anyone. She tells Headmaster Cross to leave everything to the Guardians and then jumps out of the window. She recalls how Kaname found her in the snow when she was 5 years old and brought her to his friend Cross's house who took her in without questioning anything about her. She feels like she owes all her life to Kaname and as she is patrolling the area, she comes across Kaname and another vampire named Ichijo who tell her that she is doing a good patrolling job. She takes her leave and Kaname comments how she is blinding him. Ichijo reminds him that all the vampires are abiding by human rules because of the orders of the pure bloods like him. Yuki refreshes herself by pouring fountain water over her head and then resumes her duty. Meanwhile Zero feels pain in his body and tries to take out medicine to get rid of it. The next morning, Yuki and Zero sleep during their classes and her friend Yuri wakes her up. The teacher gives the both of them detention for sleeping in class and after class, Yuri comments to her that the both of them work all night and then sleep all day like vampires. Yuki starts freaking out and asks Yuri whether she believes in vampires so her friend rejects the notion which relieves her. She starts to go and Yuki notices that Zero is skipping out on detention. She finds him sleeping with his horse Lily and then wakes him up. She reminds him that they have to do their duty so he storms out. She then wonders what's been on Zero's mind lately and his horse Lily scares her off. Later, she and Zero do patrol duty around the school and she reports that nobody from day school is wandering on the school grounds due to which everything is alright. She believes that humans and vampires can really live in peace but Zero thinks that they can never live in peace and even believes that the night class students are all fraudsters. He declares that he likes working night duty so that he can put down the vampire monsters and then heads inside. She recalls that 4 years ago Cross introduced her to Zero and revealed that his parents were killed by a bad vampire. She then saw a lot of hatred in his eyes but over the 4 years, he opened up a little to her and even sometimes joked around with her. She notices a few day class girls sneaking inside the school premises so she approaches and asks them to leave as it's forbidden for them to enter the school. They tell her that they want to take some pictures of the students and just then one of the students gets pricked due to which she slightly starts bleeding. Suddenly Yuki takes out her weapon and quickly reacts to two vampires that appear near her. They turn out to be Kane and Ado declares that they smelled something nice which made them come. The girls think that he is complimenting them but he grabs Yuki's hand instead which had slightly started bleeding when she climbed down the tree earlier and asks her whether he can lick it. He shows his fangs and even proposes to drink from her neck. Zero jumps between them and holds him at gunpoint as he reminds him that it's forbidden to drink in school. He almost shoots at him but Yuki pushes him which causes his bullet to hit the tree instead. Kaname appears and declares that he will take Ado and Kane to Cross for punishment. He even orders Siren to erase the memories of the day schoolgirls and Zero then drags Yuki away. He ties the scarf around her bloody hand and reminds her that vampires are all beasts. Later, he comes to her room to use her bath and notices her neck. He then rushes inside and tries to control himself. Meanwhile, Ado and Kane get suspended for a few days, but Ado doesn't care because he thinks Yuki's blood was worth the suspension. Kaname slaps him when he overhears him and then leaves him. Zero coughs in his bathroom and spits out a tablet of some sort. The next day, the class is filled with chatter regarding the upcoming Valentine's Day as the girls prepare chocolates to give to Kaname or some other night class guys. The day class boys whine about how they cannot get any chocolates and Yori comments that she isn't interested in giving chocolates to anyone. Yuki declares the same thing, but Yori points out how she is reading a magazine regarding baking chocolates. She makes excuses about it and Zero asks her why she would make chocolates for a guy like Kaname. She explains that she only plans to make chocolates to a person whom she feels indebted to, and their classmates also chatter about how Zero is also going to get chocolates since he is a hottie too. The headmaster later tells both guardians to stay extra alert because of the upcoming event and Zero suggests him to ban the event altogether. He ignores his advice and compliments the night class members for their striking looks. He then tries to make Zero understand that he only wants humans and vampires to remain in peace, due to which he is gladly educating the vampires who can at least study with humans for now. Zero thinks that the past needs to disappear first before he can ever think of such a dream. Yuki notices the sour mood, so she gives gifts to both of them and then drags Zero out. She wonders why Cross always says such things to stir Zero's feelings. She recalls that when Zero came to her, Cross went to the police while she took Zero for a bath. She stripped him and saw him covered in blood, so she took a sponge and started to clean him. She kept asking him for permission to touch him, but he didn't say anything and he didn't have any wound on him, but still she felt like she had to be very cautious with him. The next evening, all the girls gather at the front of the night class dorm to fangirl and scream their hearts out. One girl even climbs the fence, and inside the dorm, they all wonder who will get the most chocolates. Kaname arrives, which shuts the others up, and they all greet him seriously. The girl climbing the fence falls down and Zero catches her. He scolds all the girls that the upcoming Valentine's Day will be banned if they break the rules. The gate opens and all the night class members pour out. The girls lose their crap over them and Yuki tries to contain them as they all walk by. Kaname greets her too, which makes all the girls stare at her, and Kaname then notices Zero's constipated looking face. He asks him whether he is alright and tells him to take care of himself before walking away. Zero tells him that he is ready to face him anytime he wants. Later, Yuki prepares chocolate for Kaname and she keeps telling himself that it's just an appreciation chocolate. Zero overhears her conversation and walks away in a sullen mood. His body starts to ache and he slumps down against a wall somehow. Cross notices him and comments that he always avoids his situation till it becomes the worst, but he just tells him to shut up. Cross gives him a tablet with a glass of water which will help ease his symptoms, but Zero throws away the glass quickly. Cross then points out that his fits have started to come quickly now, due to which it's getting harder for him to control. The next day, Yuki dozes in the class as usual, and after class Yori comments that she returned late to room even more than usual. She shows her the chocolates she ended up buying because she couldn't properly make chocolates. Their classmates then rush to give chocolates to the night class members, so Zero and Yuki rush to do their duty as well. Yuki notices that Zero seems down somehow and wonders whether he is planning to do something to Kaname. The dorm doors open to reveal the night class members and Yuki yells out to the waiting girls that they have to wait at their designated sections where each member will come to pick chocolates. Ado starts to rush ahead, so Kaname scolds him for acting out of line and Yuki thanks him. The night class members then walk and start to accept chocolates one by one. The girls also give chocolates to Kaname, which he gladly accepts, and when his arms become full, he apologizes to the ladies. He then thanks Yuki and starts to leave while Yuki thinks about how she didn't get a chance to give him her chocolates. The girls run all over her, which causes her to drop her chocolates, and Zero picks them up. He throws them at Kaname, who accepts the chocolates and walks away. Yuki then scolds Zero for acting on his own and comments that she didn't want to bother him with her chocolates. Meanwhile, Zero is in another land as he looks at her neck and feels all kinds of emotions which cause him to walk away. Kaname hands over all chocolates to his minion Siren and only keeps the one that Yuki gave to him. Yuki gets done with her cringe speech and notices that Zero has left. Zero goes to the horse stable where his body starts to hurt again and a girl comes to give him some chocolates. He yells at her to go away, which makes her leave, and he then feels guilty about his behavior. He skips out on his night watch duty as well, and Kaname notices that a bunch of vampires are also skipping classes. The group of vampires led by Ado surrounds Zero and taunts him for being rude towards Kaname. He asks them to come at him and even flips Kane on his back, which makes the others angry. Ado summons his ice powers and Kane also summons fire to take him on, but just then Yuki jumps between them. She reminds everyone that fighting is forbidden and the mood gets ruined, so they all walk away. She asks Zero why he is acting so strange and he tells her to leave him alone. Later, he is gloomily wasting away in his room when Yuki finds him and dries his hair. She even closes his shirt and then feeds him the chocolate she had made herself. She wishes he would talk to her a little, and once again he notices her face and her neck. He tells her to leave him again and then walks out. She finds a blood tablet on the floor, which makes her wonder what it is doing there. The vampires report how they were being naughty to Kaname, and he thinks about the incident 4 years ago which changed Zero's life completely. Cross makes his special dish for Yuki and Zero and even takes a commemorative picture. He announces that they finally have a duty not as a guardian but rather as members of a disciplinary committee. Siren announces to the night class members that there's going to be a surprise inspection of their rooms soon. Most of them don't care because they don't have anything sus in their rooms. However, Ado seems to have all the junk in the world in his room. Kane advises him to dump everything, but he doesn't listen to him and Kaname arrives to take care of him and his nasty room. Yuki goes through the dorm rooms of all the day class members and confiscates all the photos that they have taken of the vampires one by one. The girls whine a lot and some even call her a stuck-up loser, but she only ignores them. She gathers a huge bundle of such photos and also notices that Zero is skipping out on his duties again. She approaches him to scold him and he quickly hides the tablet pouch that he is holding. They both then head to the Moon dormitory, which they have never entered before. An old disgusting-looking man lets them enter, and at the same time Kaname makes the vampires clear out Ado's room so that it's left sparkling clean. Yuki asks Zero to show her what he is hiding in his pocket, and she accidentally stumbles on the stairs, which makes her fall on top of him. She then snatches the tablet holders from his pocket and asks him whether he is sick, but he snatches it back and storms off. Kaname watches everything from a window, and the night class members declare that the surprise inspection is over since Yuki also runs after Zero to stop him. She wonders whether she should tell anyone but decides otherwise and runs after him to chase him. She ends up in the town where she loses sight of him, and she then bumps into a woman who seems to be in a weird trance. She apologizes to the woman and keeps up her search, but soon she starts to feel hopeless. A kid passes by her with a red balloon which starts and makes her remember the red from her past. The kid's balloon ends up getting stuck in a tree, so she jumps and catches it. The kid runs away and she runs after him to give his balloon back to him. Meanwhile, Zero eats food at a restaurant, and at the same time Yuki searches for the kid in the streets. He keeps running away from her and she finally corners him, so she asks him to take his balloon back. She extends her hand and he in return attacks her. She jumps back and another woman with red eyes attacks her from the back. She makes a run for it and Zero also senses something wrong, so he rushes out of the restaurant in haste. Yuki gets inside the building and tries to get to the top. She starts having a breakdown that the vampires she knows are all beautiful and loved by everyone, but then she recalls when she was attacked by vampires 10 years ago. A woman vampire attacks Zero and he kicks her back. He then takes out his gun to deal with her and she lunges at him to attack him but suddenly stops. She calls him a comrade and even smiles at him, which makes Zero angry, so he shoots at her. A kid appears behind her which makes him recall something from his past, and then he runs away inside the building. He lunges on Yuki next and tries clawing at her face. She pushes him back and the bell starts ringing, which hurts her ears. Suddenly Kaname appears at the window and comments that the kid vampire is in a poor state. The kid steps back in fear and Kaname then jumps behind Yuki to cover her eyes. He tells the vampire that he has hurt someone very dear to him and then uses his vampire powers to send him flying. He tells Yuki that the vampire was a type E vampire and calls her a naughty girl for wandering around in such areas alone. She explains that she was only looking for Zero, so he tells her that Zero was back in the dorm. Zero also overhears their conversation but doesn't approach them because he feels sick of Yuki's blood smell. Later, after getting back to the dorm, she prepares herself for the patrol duty and cheerfully heads out. Cross tells Kaname that he is very different from others and that he has the powers of ancient vampires, due to which he is a different breed altogether. Kaname asks him when he will deal with Zero and reminds him of his goal to uphold peace, which cannot be maintained if Zero keeps acting cringe. Yuki visits Zero's room and notices that he is not present. Cross reminds Kaname that Zero's parents were killed by vampires and only he managed to miraculously survive, so Kaname tells him that Zero's parents were killed by a special purebred vampire just like him. Zero suffers with a sickness as he keeps recalling Yuki and her face. Meanwhile, Yuki also strolls through the halls and comes across Zero on the stairs. Kaname once again reminds Cross to remember his ideals as an official vampire hunter, and just then Yuki approaches Zero to talk to him. She reveals that she is starting to understand that there are frightening vampires as well, and he tells her to stay away from him. She feels hurt because she thought the both of them have been through similar problems, and she starts to leave, so Zero stops her. Her bloodied bandage opens up just then and Zero pulls her towards him, after which he proceeds to bite her neck. Turns out, Zero was actually bitten by a pureblood vampire, which causes a human to turn into a vampire as well. Yuki pushes him away and realizes that he is actually a vampire. Her blood starts to fall on the floor, which snaps him back to reality, and he apologizes to her. Kaname senses something and rushes out of the room. Yuki is about to say something when Kaname jumps in front of her and calls Zero a monster. Yuki thinks he will kill him, so she tries to rush between them and ends up fainting. Kaname then points out to Zero that he has drunk a lot of her blood, which is making her weak, and taunts him by asking whether her blood was really that delicious. He carries her body outside and tells Cross, who is standing there, to take care of the matter. Kaname takes Yuki to an infirmary where he informs her that the neck bite is deep and she starts crying, so he asks her whether she is hurting. He asks her whether she is afraid of the vampires now, and she shakes her head in response. Cross comes and tells Kaname to head back to his class because the smell of blood is agitating the vampires. He heads out and Cross then puts a bandage on her neck as he reveals that Zero has calmed down now that he is back in his dormitory. He explains to her that Zero was bitten by a purebred vampire when his family and twin brother were killed, and that a purebred vampire's bite can turn a human into a vampire. He tells her not to worry because she won't turn into a vampire, and she realizes he was taking blood tablets to curb his hunger. The night class members discuss why there was a smell of blood out of nowhere, and Ado comments that it was Yuki's blood smell for sure. Yuki keeps thinking about how Zero has suffered all these years while Zero himself mopes around in his room like an emo dude. Yuki then overhears Kaname asking Cross when he will transfer Zero from day class to night class, and he argues that a student has never been transferred. Yuki then runs away and Kaname overhears her leaving. She wonders how Zero can ever adjust in night class since he hates the vampires, which makes her realize that he must have hated himself all along. The next day Zero doesn't come to class and Yori notices that Yuki looks very pale. The class begins and Yuki storms out of class as she gets an idea. She rushes to the Moon dormitory and the guard tells her that she isn't the only one who came to the dormitory. Meanwhile, some researchers meet up with Ado and ask him to participate in their research. He replies that he isn't interested in any daytime activity and kicks them out just as Yuki enters the dorm. He feels irritated and sleepy, so he asks Yuki whether she has come to let him drink her blood. She asks him to let her see Kaname and he starts to show her the way, which surprises her. He comments that Kaname is only nice to her and asks who bit her. She notices that he took off her bandage sneakily, and he comments that he noticed right away when she started bleeding last night, but Kaname told all of them to forget it, due to which none of them did anything. She realizes that Kaname hasn't told anyone about Zero's identity, which makes her feel really good, and he gets irritated to see her smug expression. He freezes the staircase and even her feet as he demands to know why Kaname cares about her. She shares her desperate sob story that Kaname saved her life 10 years ago, and he comments that her blood now belongs to Kaname since he is her savior. He asks her to not give her blood to anyone else and even starts elaborating how Kaname will one day touch her neck and drink her blood. He asks her to ask Kaname to drink her blood, and she is about to slap him when Kaname appears and stops her. He slaps Ado instead, and Ado apologizes to him for stepping out of line. He runs away and Kaname then tells Yuki that she is different from all the other vampires who serve her. He tells her not to come to the vampire dormitory by herself and suggests she ask Zero to accompany her. He taunts him that at least he can accompany her now that he has drunk her blood, and Yuki asks him to stop treating Zero so roughly. He replies that he cannot forgive him for hurting his loved one, and she then requests him to not transfer Zero into night class. She explains that he has been fighting a battle with himself all these years, but she never even noticed it, and he asks her to stop torturing herself over it. She explains that she hurt him a lot and starts crying like a wuss, so he wipes her tears and comments that he cannot accept her request. He explains that all such vampires ultimately turn into E-ranked vampire degenerate, due to which Zero is trying to protect her by staying far away from her. She runs away, and Kane, who overhears everything, mentions that he shouldn't attach himself to someone like Zero who comes from a vampire hunter family. Kaname replies that Yuki is the only girl who is very dear to her. Meanwhile, Yuki notices that Zero's room's light is still on, which indicates that he is still awake. She rushes to his room, and at the same Zero comes across a picture of Yuki and him, which turns him into an emo boy again. He recalls that Cross gave him a pistol a long time ago which cannot injure humans and can only hurt vampires. He loads the gun and Yuki rushes into the room just then. She realizes what's on his mind, so he lunges at her to get the gun and he pushes her on the bed. He points the gun at himself and asks her to shoot him because he doesn't want to turn into a level E vampire. She shakes her head, so he reminds her how he feasted on her blood and had the time of his life. He asks her whether she is scared of him and she says no to everything he says. He then leaves the pistol with her and storms out of the room after telling her not to bother him anymore. Yuki notices the picture of both of them on his floor and she runs after him. She finds him outside the building and hugs him. She assures him that everything will be alright, and he recalls an incident from his past in which he was hurting himself, and she said the same thing. She tells him that she isn't scared of him because she has stayed with him all these years and declares that she is his ally even if Kaname doesn't approve of it. Cross meets up with a Hunter Society member who asks him about Zero's condition, so he informs him that Zero is stable. He in return informs Cross that he has dispatched someone to the academy to check on things and to take care of any disturbance. Cross gives Zero a tattoo on his neck and Yuki a bracelet to wear. He explains that vampire hunters use this spell to tame vampires, and the spell works when the bracelet is used to immobilize the vampire. Yuki places her wrist near him, which electrocutes and knocks him out for a little bit. He explains that Kaname has allowed Zero to stay in the day class on the condition that the spell is placed on him, and teases Zero that he can drink his blood if he still feels a craving. Zero beats him up and assures Yuki that the arrangement is alright with him, after which he walks out. Later at night, Yuki does patrol duty and wonders whether Zero is skipping his duty. The next morning, Yuki and Yori arrive in class to find that a new ethics lecturer is coming. They all take their seats just as the new teacher arrives and introduces himself as Yaguri. The girls start asking him whether he is single or whether he likes someone. Zero suddenly walks out of the classroom and Yuki rushes after him after telling Yaguri that she will bring him back. Yaguri reveals to the class that his eye was lost in compensation for someone's life. Yuki rushes after Zero and they both come across Cross, who is waiting for them at the gate. He sends them both to the town for an errand, and they both roam around in the market to buy a bunch of things. They then go to a dessert cafe where Yuki eats sundae and she asks him whether he knows Yaguri. Suddenly the waitress asks Zero whether he is from the Cross Academy night class and comments that he seems different from the others. He tells Yuki that he will be waiting for her outside and then leave the cafe. He starts wondering whether he excludes the same scent as the other vampires, and suddenly he smells blood in the air, so he rushes in the direction of the smell. Yuki comes out and finds him missing, so she starts to look for him in the streets. A creepy vampire attacks her and she uses her rod to push him back. The vampire declares that her blood smells really good and attacks her again, but this time Zero jumps behind her and makes her attack the vampire. He advises her to not stand still and the vampire lunges at them again, so Zero attacks him this time. Ichijo and Shiki appear out of nowhere and then take him down. Yuki asks them why they are killing the vampire, so they ask her to come to their dorm if she needs answers. Later at night she heads to their dorm and finds Zero waiting for her at the door. He reveals that he is going with her and shows her an anti-vampire pistol which he is taking along. She argues that all the night class members are good vampires, and he hands her the gun as he tells her to put him down if he ever goes berserk. She argues that she will use the spell to fight him, but he argues that the spell won't be enough if he ever transforms into level E vampire, due to which he wants her to put him down once the time comes. She agrees to his request and makes him promise that he will do everything he can to not reach that stage. They both head inside where Ado and Kane ambush them instantly and reveal that they have come to escort them. They all then head to a party where they come across Vice President Ichijo, who declares that it's his birthday party. Yuki asks him why he killed the rogue vampire, so he explains that the vampire society is ruled by purebleeds and a bunch of aristocrats, after which normal vampires come, but level E vampires are the worst of the worst. She defends the E-ranked vampires since they were originally turned into vampires, and Kaname arrives to tell her that he had ordered Shiki and him to kill that E-ranked vampire. He then scolds her for coming to such a dangerous place, and she tries explaining herself, so he tells her and Zero to come near him. They approach him, after which he makes her sit with him as he explains that the place beside him is the safest place for her. He starts preaching to her about the vampire's history, that a long time ago the battle of vampires and vampire hunters was at its worst when vampires started recruiting humans to increase their power. Due to this, purebred vampires had to oversee the humans who started turning into vampires, and Zero declares that it's the duty of vampire hunters to hunt down vampires. Kaname asks him why he didn't hunt down the level E vampire first then, and even implies that he must have sympathized with him. He also unwinds the bandage on Yuki's arm and places his lips on the scratches that she got. Zero pulls the gun at him and suddenly Siren rushes to attack him. Kaname makes her back down and the other vampires become agitated to see that he put his gun at Kaname. They remind the Guardians that they are only here because of the orders from Kaname, who is a pureblood, which makes Yuki surprised because she didn't know he was a pureblood. He asks her whether she is scared of him, and she admits that she has always been a little scared of him. Ichijo then claps his hands to distract everyone and asks them to concentrate on his party. Yaguri tells Cross that an E-ranked vampire wandered into the town but someone else took care of it. He comments that the night class vampires consider it a sport to hunt down the lowly vampires and believes that only vampire hunters can hunt down the vampires. Yuki realizes that his wounds aren't hurting anymore, which could be because of Kanami's mega licking powers. The atmosphere of the party turns tense as some people get too close with each other while Ichijo gets his hand cut and Shiki starts licking his finger. Zero runs away as always and Yuki tries to follow him, but Edo stops and asks her to dance with him. She gets away from him and runs after Zero. The vampires discuss how there are sometimes turned vampires who cannot absorb blood tablets. Zero starts to suffer from bloodlust and he tries to take the blood tablets but fails badly. His neck tattoo hurts him a lot and he hugs Yuki tightly in pain. The bloodlust gets to him and rather than biting her, he jumps into the pool with her. He then snaps back to reality and suddenly Yaguri appears out of nowhere. He shoots him and Zero calls him his teacher. In the past, Zero feels guilty that his master and teacher Yaguri lost his eye because he didn't run away from the vampire when he asked him to. Yaguri tells him not to fret and Zero asks him why vampires hurt people, so Yaguri explains to him that vampires are all pitiful creatures who cannot control their instincts. In the present, Zero gets shot in him which hurts a lot and Yaguri reminds him that his bullets contain an anti-vampire spell on them. He asks him whether he really wants to resign to his fate even if he is hungry, and Yuki then comes between them. She declares that she won't let Zero die, but Zero assures him that it's okay and pushes her away. Yaguri is then about to blow his brains out when Cross comes running and asks Yaguri to step away. Yuki and Zero get out of the water and Cross then send them back to their dorms. Later, Yuki stays up wondering how Zero will survive if he cannot absorb the blood tablets. Yori also notices and asks her how she can help her out, but Yuki only cries in front of her because she cannot tell her anything. The next day, Zero doesn't come to school and skips out on his guardian duty as well, due to which Yuki has to keep the girls away from the night class members all by herself. She then visits his room and doesn't find him there as well, so she approaches Yaguri next and demands to know what he did to Zero. He reveals that he has put him into isolation because he can hurt anyone at any given moment. He then leaves to teach the night class and Kaname also heads to the class. He tells Yuki that he hasn't seen Zero lately and that she should reconsider his transfer to the night class. Yaguri takes the desk and introduces himself to all the vampires, which makes them realize that their new teacher is actually the infamous #1 vampire hunter. Kaname asks him whether he has come to execute someone and he answers that his execution list is empty for now. The class proceeds normally and at the end someone throws a knife at him which he easily blocks with his book. He then heads out only to find Yuki still waiting for him. She keeps yapping about Zero's isolation, so he tells her that she cannot do anything being the pathetic loser she is and that he is kept in Cross's guest room. She rushes to the room and knocks on it, after which Zero casually opens the door. She asks him why he is obediently listening to Yaguri and won't leave, so he starts explaining to her that Yaguri used to be his guardian because his vampire hunter's parents used to be away a lot. One time a very nice head nurse turned out to be a vampire and she had descended into madness as she attacked humans, so Yaguri tried to put him down. Zero jumped between them and tried to convince Yaguri that the nurse was not at fault, but just then the nurse attacked Yaguri and took his eye out. Yaguri then put her down and it was the first time that Zero felt scared of vampires. He explains to Yuki that Yaguri has taught him such things by risking his very own life and that he is ready to die if his teacher says so. Yuki believes that he easily gives up on everything and asks him not to run away. She enters his room and takes his hand as she starts to lead him into the washroom. Once they are inside, she asks him to continue where he left off the last time and then takes off her coat. She explains that he needs to drink blood from her or else he cannot survive, and he asks her to stop or else he won't be able to forgive himself. She gets near him and he then bites into her neck. He keeps drinking till she puts a hand on his back and then he stops. He comments that it's shameful for him to drink her blood and that he cannot stop his hunger and craving. He asks her to give up on him and she starts lecturing him that she won't give up on him since she promised to be his ally and that he can hate anyone he wants but she will stay with him. She declares that she feels fine and asks him to class the next day too. Afterwards she heads out and comes across Kaname on the way, who tells her that he had gone to meet Cross. He notices that her hair is wet and she wonders whether he has noticed anything, but he just hugs her tightly and comments that she doesn't tell him everything anymore. He tells her to go to bed and walks away, making her wonder why heart hurts so much even though she herself made Zero drink her blood. Kaname comes across Yaguri, who asks him why he isn't doing anything despite knowing what Yuki has done and starts taunting him that he must be furious. He asks him why he isn't putting Zero down, so Kaname answers that he doesn't want to lose Yuki. The next morning Zero doesn't come to class, which makes Yuki worry a lot, and at the same time, Yaguri approaches Zero in his room. He draws the curtains to let the light inside and asks him whether his shoulder is alright after being hit by the anti-vampire gun. He explains that it couldn't have healed so fast without blood from a human and then draws his gun at him. Yaguri doesn't come to class, which makes Yuki suspicious, so she rushes outside to Zero's room. She barges inside his room and sees Yaguri about to shoot him, so he yells at them to stop. Zero snaps out of his emo boy mood and grabs Yaguri's gun to stop him. Yaguri then reminds him of the oath that he made with him after his I was lost and taunts him that he doesn't recall saving such a loser boy. He tells him to not run away from his struggles and also advises Yuki to stop Zero if he goes on a rampage. He starts preaching that she shouldn't be lenient with him or else it will make him worse, and always be ready to take him down. He also tells Zero that a certain woman is alive and then heads out. Yuki tells Zero that she was afraid he would die and he sees her crying, so he declares that he won't run away anymore. Zero does some shooting practice while Yuki keeps an eye on him, and he comments that it must be tough being his guardian since she is always worried about him. She asks him whether he feels alright now, and he in return shoots some more bullets. He asks her to stop wearing the neck bandage, but she explains that people like Ado can rip away a band-aid, so she needs something lasting. He then taunts her that she must want Kaname to drink her blood rather than him, so she calls him a pervert and runs away. She runs into her room where she starts having all kinds of nervous thoughts that scary vampires will eat her and no one will come to her rescue like Kaname did in the past. Her first memory after the rescue is when Kaname took her to Cross and she couldn't even eat pudding there because she didn't know how to. Cross agreed to adopt her and Kaname then showed her how to eat pudding. She noticed his fangs then, which made her recall the vampire who had attacked her. The pudding fell from her hands and Kaname decided to head back home to stay away from her. Cross wondered whether it was alright for him to head back, considering all the vampires just wanted to take advantage of him. After his parents, but Kaname felt like he had to do it. After he was gone, Yuki kept staring at the scenery outside, which made Cross comment that she doesn't need to be afraid anymore. A week passed by in which Cross filed all the papers and legally adopted her, but she refused to say even one word to him. Soon he became really worried for her, so he called Kaname over and Yuki woke up to find Kaname arguing with him that he was heading back. She quickly got up to meet him and started changing clothes quickly, but fell down in the process. Cross and Kaname rushed inside to find that she had a mess of herself, which made Kaname laugh a lot. He was about to head back, but she stopped him and called out his name even though she hadn't spoken anything in a while. Time passed by this way, and a year later Yuki waited outside her house to greet Kaname. He soon arrived and she told him that it's her birthday since it's been 1 year since he saved her. He congratulated her in return and hugged her as well. With the passage of time, she realized that Kaname was actually a vampire and that he was different from the vampire that attacked her. Cross also assured her that all vampires aren't bad and some of them can be good like Kaname too. One time she went to town to meet Kaname because she knew he was coming to meet her, even though she had always been scared of going out alone. She met a vampire on the street and suddenly Kaname appeared behind her, which made the vampire bow towards him. She told Kaname that she isn't scared of anything in his presence and hugged her. Sometime later, Cross introduced her to Zero and told her how vampires have killed his family. Later she found him scratching his neck and he revealed that he can still feel a woman's touch on his neck. She realized that the woman was the one who has killed his family and injured him as well, so she assures him that everything is alright and that she is going to stay with him. Later the both of them were eating food with Cross when Kaname arrived and Zero met him for the first time ever. He smelled him and lunged at him, so Yuki tried to come between them to stop him. Kaname jumped in front of her and Zero stabbed his arm, which made him comment that he doesn't seem like a nice person. Zero commented that he smells like the woman vampire who attacked him and Kaname declared that he does not intend to be killed by him anytime soon. After he was gone, Yuki apologized to him for not telling him and he pushed her away because he couldn't believe she was acting so chummy with a vampire. She explained that all vampires aren't evil, but he thought she and Cross are lunatic for having such thoughts. Sometime later, Cross established the night class for the vampires so that they can do long-term research, and it was a project to make the coexistence of humans and vampires possible. Zero threw a tantrum when he heard this because he did not believe in coexistence, and Cross tried to console him that he himself had lost a lot of people to vampires, but they needed to work towards peace. In the present, Kaname keeps thinking about Zero and Yuki's relationship while Yuki wonders whether vampires can extract their partner's feelings through their blood. In the past, a temporary dorm was soon established to house the vampires and Yuki wanted to meet Kaname, so she rushed to the dorm to look for him. She came across a Chijo who recognized her because he lived with Kaname and often dropped him off at Yuki's house too. He told her that Kaname isn't at home right now and made her leave the dorm with the advice that she shouldn't wander alone at night. She still didn't give up and sneaked inside to keep waiting for him. Some other vampires walked by discussing their classes and they noticed Yuki, which made them wonder what a human kid was doing at their place. Ruka scolded the guys that they shouldn't bother the kid since Kaname will be upset at them, which made Yuki realize that she must also like Kaname a lot. She fell asleep at the same place eventually and another vampire found her there. He approached her, but just then Kaname appeared behind him and reminded him about the night class leaves. The vampire left after apologizing to him, and Kaname noticed her defenseless body, which even made him want to drink her blood. He controlled himself and carried her to his room. She later woke up in his bed and tried to sneak outside, only to find Kaname drinking Yuka's blood. He was doing it for her sake, but it gave her the shock of a lifetime. She went outside and Zero emphasized to her that Kaname is a beast like the others. That day Yuki realized how much she was different from Kaname, and in the present, Zero puts a blanket over her. He looks at her neck, which awakens his bloodlust again. Just then Kaname arrives at the door. He takes him outside and tells him that he is only tolerating his existence because he knows he will always protect Yuki. Kaname locks himself in his room as he goes emo once again, and Ichijo tries to check up on him but gets no response. He turns around and finds that all the vampires have gathered to check up on him as well, so he assures them Kaname must have a lot of things in his mind due to which he needs to be left alone. A maid comes with all the books that Ichijo had ordered, and he asks her to drop them off in his room. She also asks him about Kaname because she has to show him a request from someone intending to stay in the dormitory. Ichijo sees the request and starts to freak out because his grandpa has submitted the request and is coming to the dorm in one night. The vampires discuss how Ichijo's grandpa, named Ikkyo, is the member of the Senate and a powerful conglomerate who is also the head of one of the elite vampire families. Later all the vampires skip class to welcome Ikkyo, and they discuss who would be the scarier out of Ikkyo and Kaname. Just then Kaname also comes out of his depression to join all of them, and Ichijo tries to assure him that he doesn't need to welcome Ikkyo, but Kaname only wants to greet him. Ikkyo arrives with all the drama and declares that he has come to meet his grandson, only due to which others don't need to welcome him so formally. He comments to Kaname that he remembers how he rejected his offer to let him become his guardian, and Kaname replies that he didn't want to be pampered. Ichijo thinks that they should move the conversation to a private setting, and Ikkyo notices Kaname's neck, which makes him feel all sorts of creepy things. He holds Kaname's hand and comments that the pureblood vampires is very unique and different. The others rush to Kaname's side to defend him because they think he is implying to drink his blood, and they remind him that it's a taboo to drink a purebred's blood. Ado begins arguing with him, so Kaname slaps him and tells Ikkyo that he has been lax with his discipline. Ikkyo then bends his knee and kisses his hand to show his respect to the purebred. Later Kaname is back in his room and he calls out to Ruka, who has been standing outside his door for ages. She comes inside and points out that he saved Ado from Ikkyo because he is very kind. She then bends on him and asks him to drink her blood even if it can sustain him a little bit, but he rejects her offer smoothly and makes her leave. She then comes across Kane on the way and starts whining to him that Kaname didn't want her blood and how he only drank her blood one time when they first came into the academy. She hugs him and starts crying that she loves Kaname a lot, but he still doesn't need her blood. Ikkyo tells Ichijo to keep serving Kaname and to keep an eye on him, but Ichijo assures him that he won't ever harm Kaname in any way. He in return taunts the false peace in the academy, and Yuki, who has just arrived, declares that there's actual peace in the academy. She and Zero arrive to escort him to Cross's office, and Kaname also appears. He tells Ikkyo that he looks forward to meeting him again, and Ikkyo then leaves the dorm with Zero. Kaname tells Yuki that she is doing a good job, and she also thanks him because she believes that Kaname put a blanket on her last night rather than Zero, who actually did it. Later she happily heads to her room with the same blanket and enters Zero's room, where he scolds her for not knocking. He wonders what Kaname actually wants with her, and she informs him that she has never wanted to give her blood to Kaname. She starts preaching to him that she has a duty to give blood to him and that he should be prepared because she is offering him her services. He forces her into a corner and gets close to her, but she starts to hesitate, which makes him point out that she is the unprepared one. She throws the towel at him and scolds him for teasing her, after which she storms out. Cross then comes inside next and gives him a letter from Hunter Society asking them to hunt down a level E serial killer. He explains that the Hunter Society wants to test him out and he cannot say no to the assignment. The next day, Yuki notices Zero heading out, so she starts to follow him as she wonders why he is skipping classes. She follows him into the town and he then heads inside an abandoned building. Shiki and Rina get dropped at the same site by their photography manager, and the manager reminds Shiki not to get sunburned. They both discuss that the Senate has ordered them to get rid of the serial killer vampire before the Hunter Society, and that Ichijo also got scolded by his grandpa a lot for letting a vampire run rampant in the town. They then come across Yuki, who was hiding behind the tree. Meanwhile, Zero comes across the vampire and his hostage, and he asks him whether he is the vampire who has killed 4 teenage girls. The vampire taunts him for asking him such questions and starts going on about how it's such a pleasure to feast on a girl. He attacks Zero and makes a run for it. Zero tries to shoot at him but he misses the mark and he tells himself that he will put an end to his misery. Yuki also hears the gunshot and runs inside but comes across the vampire instead. He assumes that she is Zero's companion and before she can attack him, Shiki appears behind her. He bites the finger to draw blood and the blood transforms into a string-like rope which he can easily use. He whips the rope at the vampire which makes him run away and Rima asks him to chase after him. Yuki then runs after him and she rushes through a hallway where the vampire ambushes her. He grabs her foot from under the ground and tells her that he will be gentle with her. Zero shoots at his shoulder and declares that he will end his misery. He then shoots at him again and ends his life. Shiki and Rima appear with the vampire's hostage girl who is still alive and Yuki thanks him for saving her and the girl's life. A female vampire watches everything from the outside through a crow and she decides to join the Cross Academy too after seeing Zero so grown up. In the past, a woman carries Zero in her lap and whispers to him that she wants him to grow up quickly with all the hatred in his heart so that he can keep looking at her with hate. She believes that they are both tied by an unbreakable bond and just then Zero wakes up from his dream. Later during the day he and Yuki both go on their guardian duty in which they try to keep the girls in line. He tells her to focus on her job just as the door opens up and all the night class members walk out. Yuki barely manages to hold the girls back while Zero threatens the girls on his side to not test his patience by overstepping the line. The girls on Yuki's side push her with the crowd and forcibly make their way to the building where the vampires have to take their classes. Ado then pulls Yuki inside the building and shuts the door on the girls' faces which makes them jealous of her. She asks him to let her go back and Kaname also tells him to stop teasing her. He mentions to Yuki that she will end up hurting herself if she keeps working so hard. Zero barges inside and drags her outside. The vampires discuss how the girls are getting extra noisy just because the ball is coming near. Meanwhile the woman from Zero's dreams arrives at Cross Academy at night time. Yuki confronts Cross about Zero's hunter job and he tries explaining to her that he has to keep doing such jobs to remain a human. He also gives her a job and asks her to show around the new transfer student named Maria who was supposed to join the night class a long time ago but couldn't manage due to bad health. Maria arrives and tells Yuki that she seems really delicious so Cross reminds her that drinking human blood is not allowed at the academy. Yuki then shows her around and Maria confides in her that she is scared of being rejected by the other vampires due to her weak health. Yuki assures her that Kaname and Ichijo are both nice vampires and that she can also come to her and Cross if she needs any help. Maria thanks her and hugs her creepily as she mentions that she loves girls like her. In the vampire class, Ado and Ichijo fool around when Maria appears out of thin air in their midst. Ado demands to know who she is so she jumps in front of him and grabs his face. She manages to scare him with her attitude and Kaname calls her out as the new transfer student. She then jumps in front of him and kisses his hand. She notices that she is making others uncomfortable so she leaves the class. Yuki finds Zero loitering around so she approaches and informs him that the girl he saved in his last mission has gotten her memories removed and that she is doing fine now. He replies that he didn't kill the vampire to save anyone and that he was just doing hunter's duty. She calls him out for acting so cringe and starts preaching to him for the dozenth time that he does not seem interested in studies or anything else which makes her think that he can disappear anytime he wants. She reminds him that he owes her explanations about his life because he has made her promise that she should kill him if he ever goes berserk. Maria appears in front of them and tells Yuki that she may have gone too far with her prank. Zero suddenly goes into a trance as he pulls out his gun and aims it at Maria but Yuki jumps in front of her and asks him why he is acting this way without any provocation. She introduces Zero to Maria and comments that usually he doesn't act without any provocation. Maria in return admits that she shouldn't be wandering around and creepily comments that girls like Yuki have a very nice blood, after which she walks away. The next day, the night class begins when Yaguri comes inside and he notices Maria but stays quiet. Zero keeps an eye on her during the class and she also notices him. Later Ichijo brings Maria to Kaname and informs him that Maria cannot sleep properly at the dorm so she wants to be excused from the dorm life for now. Kaname allows her to stay at the dorm building where the nightlife students were staying in the beginning and she happily runs away. Ado discusses with his vampire buddies that Maria is somehow sus but the data on her seems legit. He reminds the others that there is another purebred line similar to Kaname which contains a pureblood vampire called Shizuka Hayo and that Shizuka went missing after the massacre with Zero's family. The next day, Yuki whines to Yori that the girls are getting too energetic now that the ball is approaching and the class president informs her that the exams are coming as well but she always brings down the class average. He reminds her that their class may be forced to work backstage at the upcoming 2 so she needs to work hard to make sure he can dance with Ruka and then runs away. Yori suggests she let Cross find her a top class tutor and they notice that some night class students are loitering in their grounds. Maria walks in casually and Ichijo runs after her to persuade her to go back. Yuki is about to run after her but Zero stops and asks her not to get involved with her. Ado then approaches Yuki and hugs her, which makes all the girls go mad. He does it intentionally to make her a target, and Zero tells him that he wants to talk to him about something, so they both leave together. The girls run after Yuki and chase her, so she tries to somehow escape them. She comes across Ichijo, who was also running away from the girls, and he reveals that he has lost sight of Maria. He tells her that he would do anything for Kaname just like the other vampires, and that Kaname can always use his purebred powers to make the vampires obey him, but he never does such a thing. Zero asks Ichijo whether Maria relates to the purebred Princess Shizuka, and he answers that she is only a distant relative of her. Zero confesses that he hasn't been able to trace Shizuka's location for 4 years after she killed his family, and it's possible that she may have changed her appearance. Later, Kaname asks Ichijo to keep an eye on Maria because he doesn't want to take sides, and at the same time Maria approaches her servant to drink his blood but stops and runs away at the last second. In the past, when Shizuka attacks Zero's family, he notices his twin brother Ichiru standing behind her and asks him to run away. In the present, he and Yuki attend their duty together, and they notice that only a few girls are present to welcome night class members, probably because the exams are coming. She thinks that she needs to study hard, which makes Zero conclude that she probably wants to go to the ball a lot. The gate opens and the night class members stroll outside. They walk by the guardians and Maria stops to touch Yuki's hair, so Zero pulls her back towards him. Later, he warns Yuki again not to go near Maria and doesn't even know the reason why he is acting so emo again. Later she studies under Cross's supervision and Zero comes to see him, but he tells him to tutor Yuki. He goes out to do rounds in their stead and Zero begins tutoring Yuki. He keeps touching his neck and explains that the part where his family's attacker bit him is throbbing. He keeps acting weird, so she decides to take a break and heads out to make coffee. He follows her and grabs her hand too. Kaname tells Maria that she is playing games with them since he knows her identity, and she calls him her kin before walking away with her servant. Zero heads back to his dorm and Yuki realizes that he has been acting strange since Maria arrived at the school. She runs after him while thinking what Maria's relationship is to him. Zero approaches Maria, who compliments him for being able to sense her. She comments that their bond is unbreakable, and he then pulls his gun out at her just when she tells him that he should kill her. She declares that he can never possibly kill her no matter how much he tries, and Zero notices that his hand is trembling, which shock him. She explains that a vampire cannot kill his master who gave birth to him, and he still pushes himself away from him. She compliments him for being able to resist her, and Yuki overhears the both of them talking. Maria compliments him for being able to recognize her even though her appearance is completely changed, and Yuki realizes that she is actually Shizuka, who has killed Zero's family. Maria's servant drops a sword on her and Zero also lunges at her to finish her. Meanwhile, Kaname appears before Yuki and knocks her out just when both Zero and Maria injure each other. She comments how her borrowed body is feeble, and Zero collapses on the floor as blood starts to flow out of him. She decides to let him live and tells her servant to take him away. Kaname doesn't think that the wound will hurt Zero that much, but still he doesn't want Yuki to get involved, so he takes her back to her dorm. She wakes up in her room the next morning and doesn't recall what happened. She later goes to give exams and doesn't find Zero there, which makes her wonder where he is. She keeps zoning out, and even Yaguri notices her condition. Meanwhile, Ruka whines to the other vampires that Kaname should involve himself too much with Yuki, and they discuss that he has probably gone to talk to her about the upcoming ball. Yuki finishes her exam and Yori asks her to go to the cafe with her, so they both head outside. She keeps zoning out, so Yori suggests she go back and rest. Kaname and Ichijo approach her just then, and Kaname takes her to a side where he informs her that he wanted to talk to her about the ball. She reveals that she will be on patrolling duty and that she doesn't have anything to wear, but he keeps staring at her to figure out whether she remembers anything from last night. He chit-chat to her about how they used to dance as kids, and Kaname then heads back. Yaguri asks Cross why he let Maria into the school, so he tells him that Kaname requested him to let her in and that the vampire world has its own rules, so they shouldn't disturb them. Yaguri realizes that he is talking about Zero as if he is a vampire too, and he storms out in anger. Yuki is walking outside when she comes across a cat and she picks it up. Maria also approaches her and tells her that she is very cruel for forgetting him. The cat runs out of her grip, which causes her finger to start bleeding, and she suddenly remembers the events from last night when Maria and Zero had attacked each other. She wonders why she forgot everything, and Maria starts to walk away, so she grabs her hand and asks whether Zero is fine. Maria answers her that Zero is alright but will soon decline to a level E vampire, and that she knows a way to save him, but Yuki has to exchange something in return. Zero dreams about his past in which he sees Yaguri off, and his twin brother Ichiru then meets with him. He had lied about having a fever just to avoid meeting Yaguri and explains to Zero that he just wastes Yaguri's time anyway. Suddenly cherry blossoms start to fly over them and they see Shizuka at a distance who is crying. Zero suggests to Ichiru that they should head back since the woman is a vampire and Ichiru hugs him because he couldn't sense her identity. Later Ichiru sleeps in Zero's bed and Zero senses that he developed a fever after walking around in the cold. Their mom checks up on him as well and Zero tries to go out to get some medicine for him but Ichiru insists that he should stay by his side. Their mom leaves them and he starts whining about how he is too weak to become a hunter. They both discuss how Zero will grow up to become a hunter as well, due to which he is training under Yaguri now. Later, Ichiru is out in the cold when suddenly Zero hears a vampire approaching the house. He runs outside to look for Ichiru and opens the door to find Shizuka standing there. She compliments him for detecting her before her parents and appears behind him as she declares that she will give him a sinful fate now. Zero's parents lunge at her but she jumps back with Zero and tells them that she has come for them because they have killed her companion. She then bites down on Zero and massacres his family. Later, he wakes up a little to find Ichiru standing behind her and he yells at him to run away before fainting. In the present, he wakes up from his dream and finds Shizuka's servant in the room. He calls his mask unsightly and the servant turns out to be Ichiru as he takes off his mask. He asks Zero not to look at him with such hate as they were very close to each other before and then points the gun towards him. Meanwhile Yuki stands in a daze while thinking about the offer that Maria gave her. She heads to Zero's room which turns out to be empty and on the other side, Ichiru comments that Zero looks very pale. He mocks Zero for not even being able to control his lust even though everyone had very high hopes for him in the past and that he will soon turn into a mindless level E vampire. Zero asks him if he came just to mock him and Ichiru replies that he wanted to have a long, nice chat with his other half because they met after such a long time. He asks Zero if he wants to know about what actually happened on the day Shizuka killed their parents and Zero recalls how he was laying on her lap after getting bitten when Ichiru asked her to leave quickly before other hunters arrived. Ichiru comments that Zero must have sensed the darkness in his heart a long time ago and even recalls how he overheard their parents talking about how he will not be able to keep up with Zero in the future because of his weak body. He thanks Zero for always being so nice to him, which made him happy to the point that he eventually started hating Zero and put the gun down beside him. He points out that Zero always pitted him and that he doesn't know how it feels to be always compared and pitted. Zero asks him why he chose to help Shizuka out of all the things he could have done and Ichiru recalls when he saw Shizuka crying sitting on top of a tree. He asked her if she is sad about something and he started crying too, so she asked him if he is also sad just like her. Meanwhile, Yuki thinks about Zero suffering all by himself in his tiny room and how she can save him. She recalls how Kaname told her that he wants her to stay the way she is and wonders what she should do. Back on the other side, Ichiru explains that he started caring less about their parents' existence as time went by and started hating him even more. He reveals that Zero should be thankful to him because he was the one who asked Shizuka to spare his life and Zero grabs his gun before pointing out that it must be because he wanted to make him suffer as much as possible. Ichiru asks him if he has suffered as much as he has and he remarks that the pure-blooded vampires are like gods. Zero grabs him by the collar after getting angry and Ichiru reveals that she kept her promise by making his body strong. He says that he will forgive him if he joins their side as Shizuka's servant and Zero states that he will never be on the same side as him. Ichiru swings his sword at him and Zero blocks it with his gun but he falls down in the next moment as his bloodlust starts acting up again. Ichiru tells him to keep suffering till he turns into a beast and turns around to leave the room but Yaguri suddenly barges in. He gets surprised when he sees Ichiru but notices Zero in pain so he rushes to his side. Ichiru comments that Zero was the only one Yaguri actually saw as his pupil and points his sword at him before declaring that he now has the ability to beat him too. Yaguri picks Zero up and explains that Ichiru was always his pupil too. Ichiru then tries to slash him but Zero pushes him away and they both fall down as Ichiru's sword flies into the air. It almost stabs Ichiru as it falls down but Yaguri uses his own body to defend him and he ends up getting stabbed in the shoulder. Zero takes out the sword and Ichiru leaves the room after telling them to stop being so fake. Zero takes Yaguri to the headmaster and tells him to take care of him before leaving. The headmaster bandages him up before asking about what happened so Yaguri reveals that he met Ichiru. He asks the headmaster if he will still continue to act as a bystander despite everything that is happening. At the same time, the day class girls discuss how they will get the chance to dance with the pretty boys and the class representative scolds Yuki for handing in a blank answer sheet due to which their class has to prepare everything for the ball. Zero suddenly enters the room in a rush while looking around and Yuki goes after him. She puts her neck forward and tells him to do whatever he wants. His bloodlust acts up, so he quickly bites her neck, and she thinks about how he didn't hesitate even for a second. She recalls how Maria told her to either become her servant or to bring Kanami's dead body if she wants to save Zero. The next day, Zero leaves his room and the headmaster tells him to be on a strict guard duty for the ball. Yori goes to Yuki's room to give her a parcel that came for her, and Yuki discovers that it's from Kaname as the parcel contains a ball gown inside the box. At the ball, the headmaster teases Zero for being so moody nowadays, and he talks about how he wants to protect the students' happy campus life, but he also wants Zero to enjoy the moment too instead of worrying about the future. Yuki also arrives while wearing her gown, and Zero points out how she wasn't this excited about the ball before. She rushes inside after getting shy and puts a rose lapel on him before telling him that he only needs to remove the anger on his face, after which he will look perfect. He asks her how she can keep smiling, and she replies that it's because she wants him to smile too. She goes to Kane to ask him where Kaname is, and he sends her to the terrace to meet with him. She thanks him for the dress, and he tells her that she looks cute before asking her to dance with him. The two dance slowly on the terrace, and she asks him to stop treating her like a child. She reveals that she knows how he was the one who put her to sleep before tampering with her memory to keep her away from things. He hugs her before explaining that he just wants to protect her, and inside, Ado and Ichijo head out after talking about how they cannot find Maria anywhere. Yuki thinks about how Maria told her to kill Kaname, and she suddenly rushes out. Meanwhile, a girl asks Zero to dance with her, but he rejects her. He goes to Kaname, who tells him to act as Yuki's shield, while Ado and Ichijo head inside a hidden underground space. They arrive at a chamber where they find Shizuka's real body sealed inside ice, and they wonder why she abandoned her real body. Siren suddenly appears behind them and tells them not to do anything to her body, which makes them realize that Kaname must have something planned out. Yuki goes to Maria and tells her that she will sacrifice herself to save Zero. She steps forward and gives her to Maria so she can drink her blood. Maria notices the weird look on her face, so she asks him about it, and Yuki explains that she is glad that her blood can be used to save Zero. Maria throws her to the side before reminding her that she is the one who ruined his life in the first place, and Ichiro enters the room while holding her real body. Maria reveals that Zero will be saved if he drinks the blood of her real body, and she turns back into Shizuka. She explains that Zero will not turn into a level E vampire after drinking her blood, and he will transform into a true vampire at that point. Meanwhile, at the ballroom, the day class girls argue over who will dance with Ichijo next, and one of them falls down, so Ichijo helps her up. Kane drags him to the side to ask him if he's gathering the girls to eat them all later, and Ichijo laughs it off. They wonder where Maria is, and Kane goes to the terrace to meet Kaname, but he only finds Ruka. She comments that she will not dance with anyone except Kaname, but he still extends his hand to invite her to the dance, but she ignores it. Meanwhile, Shizuka reveals to Yuki that she needs her blood to regain her powers because she is being chased. She reminds her that she will also turn into a vampire if she gets bitten by a pureblood like her, and she leans forward to bite her neck, but Zero interrupts them. He almost shoots her, but Yuki steps in between before revealing how Shizuka is the only one who can save him. He points out that her blood can save him even if she is half dead, and he pushes down Yuki's rod. Shizuka tells him to keep holding her in place, and he suddenly stops moving, so she reveals that her voice has the power to bind him because she is his master. Yuki questions why she is doing this even though she was offering her blood willingly, and Shizuka explains that she needs his blood too because just Yuki's blood will not be enough to help her regain her powers. She starts drinking his blood, and Yuki questions why she is so cruel to Zero. Shizuka explains that it's his punishment for getting too close to Yuki, and she almost bites her too, but Zero suddenly pushes her away. Shizuka tells him to stop resisting because he cannot escape her control, but he shoots himself in the leg to do it. He shoots a few times at her, and she mocks him for thinking that it was enough to kill her. He starts shooting at her, but she blocks the bullets using her ribbon. Ichiro stabs his arm with his sword, and Shizuka takes her leave after saying that she has other things to do. Zero tries to chase her, but Ichiro stops him, and Yuki asks Zero about who Ichiro is. Zero smacks off the mask on Ichiro's race and reveals that they are twin brothers, which leaves her shocked. Meanwhile, the headmaster explains to Yaguri that only a vampire can interfere in the vampire world, and that Kaname is the one handling the night class, which is why he cannot interfere. Meanwhile, Kane tries to stop Ado from entering the old dorm, but he doesn't listen. Inside, the two brothers prepare to fight, and Yuki tries to stop them, but Ichiro warns her to step aside, otherwise he will kill her too. Zero points his gun at him, but Ichiro reveals that anti-vampire guns cannot hurt humans. The two begin fighting while Ichiro explains that he was allowed to drink Shizuka's blood, which empowered him, but she didn't drink his blood, which is why he is still human. Meanwhile, Shizuka heads to another room, all bloodied up, where she encounters Kaname, who comments that anti-vampire guns can even hinder the healing abilities of a pure-blooded vampire. She asks him why he came to the Cross Academy and he answers that it was to gather pawns while also repaying a debt. He says that his objective is the same as hers, and on the other side, Ichiru complains about how everyone chose Zero over him and he finally found Shizuka who brought him out of that darkness, but she ended up choosing Zero too. He manages to climb over Zero, but his sword gets blown away and Zero relates with Ichiru's words as he thinks about how the only one in Yuki's eyes is Kaname. Simultaneously, Kaname pierces Shizuka's heart and she tells him about how she was also planning to kill him by using Yuki. She comments that it was a smart move by him because her healing abilities have already been diminished by the anti-vampire gun, so stabbing her heart at such a time might even kill a pure-blooded vampire like her. He starts drinking her blood and she recalls how they both wanted the same thing when they first met. He takes out her hand and holds her body up before mentioning that he will destroy the one who twisted the fate of pure-blooded vampires like them. She talks about how he has gained new powers after drinking the blood of a pureblood just like him, but a bad future awaits him now which is filled with darkness. All the vampires smell the blood of a pure-blooded vampire and Edo watches how Kaname killed Shizuka. Ichiru rushes away to Shizuka and Zero tries to chase after him, but Yuki stops him. He tells her to back off because he needs to kill her, but she reminds him that Shizuka is the only one who can save him. He pushes her away and says that he wanted to die alongside Shizuka before, but that's not the case anymore, so he will definitely come back. Meanwhile, Ichiru reaches Shizuka and he starts crying as she bleeds out in his hands. He asks her to drink his blood so she can recover, but she refuses to do so. She tells him that he is the only person she will never turn into a vampire and that it's too late. Her body slowly starts disintegrating as she thinks about how she and he were in the same situation when they first met. She recalls how Ichiru did not like the fact that she changed her body and she made him drink her blood to make him even stronger. He asked her why she wouldn't turn him into a vampire and she explained that he would become her servant after becoming a vampire, which will make things boring for her. He pointed out how she turned Zero into a vampire, so she explained that it's fun that way in Zero's case because he wouldn't submit so easily. She said that a vampire disappears too quickly while thinking about her previous servant, and she started talking about how she and her previous servant were never meant to be together. She explained that she was like a rare beast kept in a cage while he was the food given to her, but she felt like turning him into a talking partner, which is why she turned him into a vampire instead of eating him. They ended up running away together, but he got killed and she took her revenge by killing Ichiru's parents. She called Ichiru very sinful for not hating her even though she killed his parents, and then kissed him, which left him shocked. He asked her not to tease him because she doesn't even like him, but she told him that she did like him. In the present, she tells him not to cry before asking him if he really loves her, and he replies that she always knew how he felt about her. Zero stumbles into the room while suffering from his bloodlust and sees Ichiru drinking her blood for the last time before she turns into dust. Ichiru complains about how she refused to drink his blood till the end and Zero tries to tell him that she didn't want to turn him into a vampire. Ichiru recalls how she said the same thing, which angers him as he questions how he knows her so well, so Zero explains that he also has someone that he doesn't ever want to turn into a vampire. Ichiru grabs him by the collar and says that Zero is no longer like his past self that he used to envy because he has already turned into a level E. Zero collapses on the ground and Ichiru leaves through the window. Kane approaches the room and Yuki tries to stop him, but he doesn't listen. They enter the room, only to find the headmaster in front of them, who reveals that Zero was taken away by Yaguri to the medical clinic because he was hurt. Meanwhile, Kaname recalls how Shizuka called him pitiful the first time they met and he thinks that she is also very pitiful. A few days go by and Yori teases Yuki about how she has finally started studying properly after making the whole class prepare for the ball. Yuki explains that Zero is also absent, due to which she wanted to take notes for him so he can catch up easily, and she goes to the headmaster to ask him about Zero's return. The headmaster tells her that he will be back in a while and suggests that they should go visit him together. She asks him if he knew that Maria was actually Shizuka, and he says that he is ashamed of himself because he couldn't do anything while his students were in danger. Kane and Edo report to Kaname about how Shizuka has been killed by Zero, and he talks about how he needs to report everything to the Senate because Zero broke the taboo by killing a pureblood. He says that it's very sad and he questions whether someone even knew what kind of person she actually was. The two leave the building and Kane asks Edo why he is acting weird. Edo asks him how much he knows about Shizuka, so Kane explains how she was engaged to another pureblood but she kept a human vampire by her side. They talk about how she must have really loved him, and Kane talks about how the vampire was put into the extermination list even though he had not turned into a level E vampire yet, which is why Shizuka took her revenge by killing Zero's parents. He remarks that the Senate did not want a confrontation against the humans, which is why they labeled her as a mad vampire, and Edo questions why she exposed herself by coming to the academy even though the Senate was chasing her. He deduces that there must have been something that she wanted and recalls how Kaname drank her blood to gain new powers. Meanwhile, Kaname accidentally breaks the windows and realizes that he still cannot control his newfound powers properly. After a while, he encounters Yuki and asks her how Zero is doing, so she tells him that he is alright now according to the headmaster. He apologizes to her before explaining that the whole incident was something that the night class should have handled, but she ended up getting dragged into it. He asks her why she isn't letting him protect her, and she says that Zero protected her. Kaname states that it's the least he should do, but she doesn't agree with his statement as she thinks about how she could only watch while they were all suffering due to their pasts. Meanwhile, in an underground room, the headmaster asks Yaguri how Zero is doing, and Yaguri explains that he isn't getting any better despite being drugged. They wonder if there is any hope left for him, and they suddenly hear a loud bang outside. They wonder if the Senate has learned about Shizuka's death, so they rush outside to take a look, and Kaname appears after they leave. He talks about how Zero failed to drink Shizuka's blood even though he left behind some for her, and he offers his own pure blood to him, but Zero refuses to drink it despite the immense pain. Kaname comments that he is doing this for Yuki's sake, and Zero ends up drinking his blood. That's it for today, my fellow men of culture. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe the channel for more anime recaps.